Next up, Trump is escalating his feud with the mainstream media, and things are getting spicy. So basically, the context for this story is that Trump, in one of the funniest things I think he's done as president that I unironically support, renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America and literally signed an executive order. It wasn't just a joke. He actually did this, which is hilarious and is iconic.
We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate.
But not everyone's going along with it. So, for example, the Associated Press, kind of a typical mainstream media institution that is looked towards for guidance and circulated and republished by most of the mainstream press, has rejected the name change and refused to go along with it in their style guide, still referring to it as the Gulf of Mexico, which is how it's internationally recognized, in what I honestly think is kind of a stupid stunt. If Apple Maps is renaming it, you should probably go by the new name. And your job as the mainstream press is not to be resistance warriors. It's just to clearly report the news. So maybe you just say the Gulf of America, comma, previously known as the Gulf of Mexico, or comma, still internationally recognized as the Gulf of Mexico. But anyway, they're trying to resist Trump or whatever, so they refuse to do it, which I find cringe and dumb, but it's their right to use the words they want, to say what they want as part of a free and open press. But Trump is trying to punish them for it. In a statement, the Associated Press said they have been targeted for their speech by the administration and that they've had their Oval Office access restricted. They wrote in their statement, "Today we were informed by the White House that if AP did not align its editorial standards with President Donald Trump's executive order renaming the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America, AP would be barred from accessing an event in the Oval Office. This afternoon, AP's reporter was blocked from attending an executive order signing. It is alarming that the Trump administration would punish AP for its independent journalism. Limiting our access to the Oval Office based on the content of AP's speech not only severely impedes the public's access to independent news, it plainly violates the First Amendment." So this is the dispute. Trump is apparently restricting their access in direct response to him not liking their word choice and coverage. Nonpartisan free speech and free press watchdogs are concerned about this, like the Nonpartisan Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, which, disclaimer, I do some consulting work for. They said in a statement, "Punishing journalists for not adopting state-mandated terminology is an alarming attack on press freedom. That's a viewpoint discrimination, and it's unconstitutional. President Trump has the authority to change how the U.S. government refers to the Gulf, but he cannot punish a news organization for using another term. The role of our free press is to hold those in power accountable, not to act as their mouthpiece. Any government efforts to erode this fundamental freedom deserve condemnation." Now, one thing that I thought was interesting was that a number of conservative or Republican pundits and commentators agreed with this pushback to Trump's decision. This included Fox News analyst Brit Hume, who shared FIRE's statement and said, "I agree." It also included Fox News host Guy Benson, who shared the news and said that it was an overreach. I agree, and I think the Trump administration is being petty here. It is dumb that the Associated Press is not going along with the name change, in my view, but it is their right to use the word choice that they want to use as part of a free press, and to retaliate against them for it is inconsistent with the First Amendment and freedom of the press. Now, the defenders of Trump on this issue will say something like, well, they have a right to say what they want, but they don't have a right to Oval Office access or to a press pass or what have you.
It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus, many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions.
But that's sort of true and sort of not true. It is true that not every media outlet in the world gets approved or is allowed Oval Office access. But the criteria for who qualifies and who doesn't are supposed to be content and viewpoint neutral, and any form of explicit retaliation from the government in response to someone's opinion or viewpoint is often litigated and challenged as a violation of the First Amendment. So this could fall into that category. Regardless, it's just not a game that I think Republicans should want to play, because imagine, and we have seen this play out in the past, for example, Fire defended the rights of the Gateway Pundit, a far-right news website, to be allowed to attend government proceedings in Arizona during a lot of election-related controversies. But we've seen this happen in the opposite direction, and frankly, we could see it happen a lot more if Trump does this and establishes a precedent and gets away with it. Imagine something like the trans issue, where the government says under Kamala Harris or AOC or the next Democratic president or whatever it may be, God help us if it's one of them, that an outlet like Fox News or like Breitbart is not allowed access to briefings if they use the wrong pronouns for transgender members of the administration, or if they refer to people as biologically male who are trans women or something like that. I could totally see that happening. And I would think that was horrible. I would think that's inconsistent with a free press. I'd think it's a restriction of freedom of speech. I'd think it's a presidential overreach. And I feel the same way about what Trump is doing here, because it shouldn't matter whether you agree with the underlying issue or not. It's about the principle and the precedent it would set. So I think Trump should stop being petty and let the Associated Press call it whatever they want. You know what? If the American public thinks they're being dumb and they're anti-Trump and resistance and not doing journalism, which frankly is how a lot of the public increasingly views mainstream media institutions, then the public can punish them for it with fewer viewers and readers and sort it all out in kind of a free market without government retaliation or heavy-handed backlash. That's my take. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and do hit that like button while you're at it. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet.